Elon helped build ChatGPT, then split and built a rival. I put them both to the test to see which is better at hardware. This is Smoke Test. Let's get into it. If you're new to building hardware with AI, we need two separate things before we can get started. Number one, we need an idea. And then the other thing that we need is we have to have the prompt. We've used the same idea in the same prompt every time across all of the different models. And so we have a good idea of how they're going to function. Part of that prompt, ask any questions that you need, I will answer them. For the most part, they're almost identical. Things like budget and what do you want to detect and how do you want to stream this to your friend? Similar questions in almost every regard. ChatGPT asks 11 and Grok asks 12. But Grok felt more digestible. And so as we're thinking who builds hardware better, why does 12 feel more digestible and easier to answer than 11? That seems counterintuitive. And you're right. But a lot of that has to do with a few things. Grok broke their questions into two different iterations. The general process in Grok, take a stab at the project based on the prompt alone, and then ask clarifying questions and edit. And we do that twice. ChatGPT, on the other hand, says, we're going to ask you all these questions, and then down below, it gives a lot of extra information. Part of the reason that Grok felt more digestible and easier to answer was because they broke it up into two. I'm not answering 11 questions straight of just like reading and typing and reading and typing. It felt a little shorter, even though it wasn't. The other thing, and you just heard me say it, was that the order is really important. The way humans interact with information is very unique. We're not computers, we're not robots, we're not machines, we're people. And so the way that Grok ordered that information was like, I'm going to take a stab at this, read through this, and then we're going to ask some clarifying questions. It felt more natural. You can kind of flow down the page and get to a place where, okay, I see where it's going. I see what it's thinking. It's basically describing its thought process, and then it asks some questions, and I have an opportunity to clarify those with the project that it recommends. ChatGPT, on the other hand, flipped that. It asks all the questions. It asks all 11 at the same time, and then it gives a lot of filler information. What you end up with is skimming through the questions, and then you get to all of this contextual information about the project that it thinks it's recommending, but then you got to go back up to it and scroll back up, but the place to answer the questions is at the bottom. The fact that they're out of order felt a little wonky. Another reason is that Grok tended to be more open-ended. So it would ask a question, what's your budget? Most people know what a budget is. You don't need helper information. That was the question, what's your budget? ChatGPT, on the other hand, would give a lot of filler information. What's your budget? Less than $300? Is it between $300 and $600? Because it gives you that extra information, it strings it out a little bit more. So Grok tended to cut a lot of that fluff out kind of right from the beginning just because they're open-ended questions. Either you know the answer to them or you don't. If you don't know the answer, that's fine. We can figure it out along the way. But a lot of that fluff tends to draw out the UI. And speaking of UI, another thing that ChatGPT does is they put it in bullet point format. So their format is mostly bullet points when it comes to questions like these, but bullet points have a ton of white space on the side that you're just not getting any benefit out of. I've got a lot of space for a browser screen, but most of it was unused, except we used a ton vertically. I think by the end of that first section, I took like 3 or 4 pages worth of questions, information, and then having to type in my answers. 3 or 4 pages is a lot of scrolling back and forth. Because of that UI difference where compared to Grok would tie everything into a line like you would read a book, it wasted less space. The information that it presented felt tighter. Those are the reasons that even the process itself of asking clarifying questions about the project in which we want to create felt more digestible for Grok. Grok has a much better process for asking questions and iterating. It feels more natural and it feels normal to iterate through this process that nobody else really has. I would give the process and part selection to Grok. So once you know what you're going to build with, because you have the parts selected, then we've got to go put them together in order. And so that's what we've asked both of these models to do. We asked ChatGPT 5.6, produce a structured parts list. We asked Grok the same thing. As we go through this process, what I saw was that ChatGPT, in the section where it would estimate the budget, the math didn't add up. I see an item for $619, and then I see one for $140, but the budget's supposed to be $750. I added it all up, and what do you know? We went over budget $250. It was really odd that ChatGPT didn't know how to math. I know you know how to math. Math, it ain't that hard for you. If you can write software, you can math, right? You should be able to add. Grok didn't have those problems. Here's the budget. Here's how much it costs. Now, the links may have been wrong. ChatGPT was hitting about a 50% rate too. So those are pretty equal in the link department. When it comes to the budget, I would expect that to be nailed down. We talked about the process and part selection of asking questions and then editing the project as I answer those questions. I actually had to go back and count. It recommended the first real set of parts. After that point, it made six changes. Six changes of parts. This is after that was supposed to be settled, where I say, okay, last chance. I'm not going to ask you again. Build the structured parts list. And then it gave me the optional, like, which one would you rather have? Funny enough, it still forced me to choose my output right in that moment where I was done with, you've got no more chances. You've changed this 6 times. I still had to make the final decision because it just could not. It felt incapable of making that final decision and putting those in concrete. We're not done. In addition, ChatGPT decided to infuse its own requirements into this project that I didn't give it. So a couple of statements. Now, mind you, this is a pretty simple project. This project is large enough that I'd treat it like a real engineering project rather than assemble these parts. And one thing I think would make this genuinely useful, I'd like to write it an open source project. At no point have I communicated in any way, shape, or form that this should be open source, but it's decided it should be open source. I have no idea where this came from. ChatGPT felt like I was fighting it the whole time. I want you to build this thing, and we switch it 6 times, and then it decides that it needs to be open source. I'm not going to do the thing that you're asking me to do because I think it should be this other way. This went on to the point that it actually felt arrogant. I've never known of a model to feel arrogant. ChatGPT 5.6 felt arrogant. It felt like it knew better than me. Now, this is my project that I've been thinking about and I've iterated on, and I've asked lots of different models how to build this thing, and I've actually built, but it felt like it knew better. It's a weird feeling. All of these problems with producing a structured parts list, non-existent in Grok. Non-existent. It did what I asked it to do. It produced a structured parts list. The links weren't always perfect, but it tried. It tried to do the thing that I asked it to do. It didn't feel combative. It just did what I asked it to do. It put it in a structured parts list. I could have iterated a bunch on either of these and try to get it to output a document, but that's not the point of this. The point is to look at these side by side and compare which one is actually better for building hardware. When it comes to a structured parts list, Grok hands down. So on to build instructions. ChatGPT outright refused. It basically said, whoa. This is going to be a 200 to 300 page document. I don't think that makes any sense. I'm asking for build instructions. I can absolutely do that, but I wouldn't want to give you a one-shot guide because I think we'd end up replacing parts of it as you progress. Now, mind you, I've asked you for a thing. All I'm asking for is build instructions, and it refuses. I'm not going to do it, but if I was going to do it, this is what it would look like. Hardware assembly, 20 pages. That includes bench layout, mount assembly, camera installation, cable route. All of the right chapters are there. They've got it, but they refuse to give it. ChatGPT knows what needs to go in here, but it basically refused. Linux installation, 25 pages. Shouldn't take 25 pages. But hey, we're talking about 7 full volumes, 200 to 300 pages is what it estimated. Based on our conversation, I don't think you're looking for a weekend maker project. I think you're trying to build a platform you'll keep improving over time. Now, I've asked you for a structured parts list, and I've asked you for build instructions. And what you're saying is, I don't think you actually want what you say you want. I think you're looking to build something that changes over time. Okay, why are those two things mutually exclusive? Why can't I have a parts list with build instructions and then change it over time while you make me a parts list and build instructions for today? I don't know why. I'd be excited to help build that with you. I would start with hardware assembly. That's what it says. I basically say, look, I'm not going to help you do this. Start the hardware assembly guide. Okay, here's what it looks like. At no point did it actually write the build instructions. Once we start writing it, it'll be 30 to 50 pages. I already asked it to start writing. We haven't had any of these issues with Grok. This is kind of wild. It outright refused to write the build instructions. It felt like it was too complicated and that we needed to iterate and build it together over time rather than just do what I asked you to do. If I had to choose between these two models for building hardware, no doubt in my mind, I would never use ChatGPT 5.6 to build hardware. It felt combative. It felt like it didn't want you to build hardware at all. It felt like it knew better than me. I've been an engineer for 15 years. I know a few things. I've built the thing that it actually told me wasn't capable. It didn't even know how to add. If that's the way you like to build hardware, by all means, you should use ChatGPT 5.6. But according to Sam Altman, this is their best model ever. He tweeted that on Thursday after the release that it's the best model ever. It may be. It may be the best model ever for software. It may be the best model ever for strategy and for writing. It may be the best model ever for a lot of things, but I can promise you what it is not the best for. It is not the best for building hardware, because today that goes to Grok. Hey, do me a favor, like and subscribe if you would. It helps the channel out. We appreciate it. And if you want more of this in your inbox, sign up for Smoke Signal, our weekly newsletter on AI for hardware. Honest takes without the hype. You can find it at smoketest.show. This has been Smoke Test. My name's Brandon. We'll see y'all next time.